May the words of my lips and the meditations of our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. This parable of the rich man and Lazarus that we have this morning from Luke's Gospel follows the parable we heard last week, the parable of the dishonest or shrewd manager who worked for a rich man. That parable ended with the well-known phrase, "No slave can serve two masters. You cannot serve God and wealth." And we are told in the verses between these two parables that the Pharisees, who were lovers of money, heard all this, and they ridiculed Jesus. So he said to them, "You are those who justify yourselves in the sight of others, but God knows your hearts. For what is prized by human beings is an abomination in the sight of God." And so the rich man in our parable this morning, dressed in purple and fine linen, feasting sumptuously every day, certainly does not fare very well in the long run. And although we may not see ourselves as incredibly wealthy, especially in this time of economic unrest, in comparison to many other parts of the world or this nation, many of us in our times of need know that we have networks of family or friends, the assistance of St. Mark's, and the assistance of other social service organizations. And speaking for myself, I cannot say that I have ever lived lying at anyone's gate, covered in sores, dependent on scraps from anyone's table, even speaking metaphorically. When the rich man and Lazarus both die, and the rich man ends up in agony and flames and Hades, and Lazarus ends up with Abraham being comforted, we are never explicitly told exactly what the rich man did or did not do to end up in those flames. Only that Abraham tells the rich man that in his lifetime, he received his good things. He got his already, and he is stuck on that side of the great divide. And for those of us who have been fortunate enough to live reasonably comfortably, this piece of the parable can be a bit unsettling. And one of my favorite parts of this parable, which just makes me laugh, is when the rich man, burning in flames in Hades, still does not miss a beat and calls up and orders Abraham, not simply Lazarus, but Abraham. He orders Abraham to send Lazarus to dip his finger in water to cool the rich man's tongue. Even in the flames of Hades, this rich man still does not get it. He still thinks it is all about him. And this command also compounds the sins of this rich man. Not only does he have the gall to believe that he can still place demands on others, but by referring to Lazarus by name, He proves that it was not simply a case that he did not see this poor man covered with sores lying at his gate. He actually knew him by name and apparently stepped right over him. In my understanding of this parable, that haughtiness and arrogance are two of the key elements in understanding just why this rich man might be burning in the flames of Hades. I do not believe that the issue is simply that he was rich, but that he saw Lazarus outside his gate, but felt no compassion for him, nor acted to care for him in any way. For this rich man, his wealth prevented him from relating to Lazarus as an equal human being, as a fellow child of God. Even after death, he just assumed that Lazarus would do his bidding. He just does not get it. And it seems that in this parable, Jesus is making a connection here between our well-being and that of others. The importance of loving our neighbors as ourselves. If we lose our compassion for others, I think we lose something at the core of our being, something deeply and genuinely human. With his earthly wealth, this rich man has isolated himself from ugliness, from those who might make him feel uncomfortable. And it's possible for us to do that as well. This isolation through wealth can not only numb us to the needs of those in pain or despair, but can allow us to fool ourselves into believing that we have no needs, that we are doing pretty darn well all on our own. Who needs others? Who needs grace and mercy? But the opposite is also true. As we become more aware of and responsive to the basic needs and hopes of others, we become more aware of our own humanity, our own vulnerability, and therefore of our own connection and interdependence with others and with our God. Years ago, I went with a small group of youth to serve a dinner that they had prepared for the guests of St. Paul's Emergency Men's Shelter in Paterson. And after we had finished serving the guest, we sat down and ate with them. And this was early spring. And two of our younger boys and I were sitting at a table eating with some of the guests, and it came up that the boys had not only helped to serve the meal, but had also helped to prepare it. And it was very sweet to see how proudly, yet very humbly, these young boys smiled and thanked the men as the men complimented them on their cooking and thanked them for the meal. And then baseball came up. And I got the biggest kick out of listening to them all talking. The boys talked about Little League practice starting up, and the men asked them about what positions they were playing. And then they talked about the positions that they had played when they were kids. And then they all talked about professional teams, their favorite players, the upcoming season, and I did not mention that I had grown up a Red Sox fan in Massachusetts. I kept quiet during all of this, but it was just such a great experience. Such a great experience, all of us sitting around that table and talking and laughing together. Everyone being seen, everyone being heard. Last year, our youth and some parents were able to help at the Christ Church Food Pantry in Teaneck, and we look forward to helping with that again this year. And as our health conditions, God willing, continue to improve, I feel that we can be more involved in such direct relationships with others in our communities again. Opportunities that allow us to serve and to work alongside, to become more actively engaged with ministries which are as transforming for us as for others. And I give kudos to our Math Adventures and Wordplay team as they prepare to start another program year. And I ask all of us, what are other opportunities that you would like to help lead as we move forward? Think about it. So, the good news here, we are still here. We still have time. I see this parable as a wake-up call, a reminder to take stock now of all that we have been given, of how well we are loving our neighbors as ourselves, especially those who might make us uncomfortable in their basic needs and their basic hopes. How well are we seeking and serving Christ in all persons? There is no one correct answer to the meaning of any parable, but for this parable, I really like the last lines of our lesson this morning from the first letter to Timothy. As for those who in the present age are rich, command that they not be haughty, or to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but rather on God, who richly provides for us with everything for our enjoyment. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, generous and ready to share, thus storing up for themselves the treasure of a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of the life that really is life. Amen.